Pit Bay. But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Wanted to specifically focus today on a lot of the players and members of the staff that are gone, that Washington has either moved on from or the player has decided to go elsewhere. And so changes continue to be made, which, again, I don't have a problem with. I've talked about this all offseason. You know, when you're stuck in, this monotonous 7-8 win, rut, changes need to be made. Okay, you cannot continue with the status quo. We're not winning 12 games a season. Can't continue doing the same things that you've done that has netted you 7 and 8 wins each of the last 3 seasons. You've got to do something different. So that is what they are doing. And some of this change is being brought upon by new offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. Some of these changes are being brought on by the players themselves. We're going to talk about all of these moves that are being made. And where do the Commanders go next? I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. Some of these moves, I'm like, saw that coming a mile away. Others, well, okay, I wasn't sure, but yeah, they're pretty sure that, there were some irreconcilable differences, irreconcilable rather differences that may have been a bit too much for each party to bear, and so things had to be done. One in particular has me a little bit peeved, but again, there's plenty of time left in not only free agency, but this offseason in general. There's still the draft. There's still that secondary market that will occur after the draft. So there's no reason to panic, right? But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a bit disappointed. And so you look up and all of these players are gone, gone, gone. Man, they gone. Oh, gone. Each of these players that we're going to talk about here briefly have had a tremendous impact over the 3 years that Ron has been here in their own right. Back in 2020, Ron Rivera and the Washington football team don't win the division without the production of one J.D. McKissic, okay? He was fantastic. He was everything we thought he could be and then some in that first year. I think he led the team in receptions in that rookie season, mostly probably in part to Alex Smith and, his love for checking the football down. But nonetheless, J.D. McKissic was fantastic. Injuries really derailed each of the last 2 seasons, and so he was not as impactful each of the last 2 seasons. But we saw the writing on the wall with J.D. McKissic. I talked about it. I said J.D.'s probably going to be gone. I connected it to his injury. They just moved on because he hasn't been healthy. I wonder if his career is done. We'll see if he latches on somewhere else or if he calls it quits. Whatever the case may be, wish JD nothing but the best in his future endeavors. But we knew his time here was going to be coming to an end. So that wasn't a surprise to anyone. 2021, Cole Holcomb had a career season. I thought he was just scratching the surface. They made the permanent move from outside backer to middle linebacker. They gave him the green dot on a permanent basis. He was in control of the defense. He asked for that role. He asked for that, for all of that responsibility. They put it on his shoulders, and I thought he was really handling it well, and he was starting to come into his own. And I think he and Jamin Davis were starting to play off of one another very well when he got injured in that Green Bay game and ultimately would not come back for the remainder of the season. It's very disappointing that he now is not back. And I talked about this the last few shows that we were talking about, the linebacker position in particular. I said Cole Holcomb is one of those guys that it's off to the side a bit. You're not going to have to worry about someone poaching him immediately, which we didn't. The first 2 days of the tampering period came and went, and no one came knocking on the door asking, can Cole come out? All right. But As I told you, the NFL.com made a list of the top 100 free agents. Cole was at 50. And what do I always tell you? Okay, even when you think your shit is safe, I said someone is always eyeballing your stuff, either from afar, at a distance, or up close and personal. A lot of times it comes from within the division. You're up close and personal. You see that guy twice a year for 2-3 years at a time, and you said, that guy's really good. We should take him away from them and add him to our roster. But sometimes people are over there scoping you with a sniper from a distance. They watching, hoping, praying that you get caught slipping so they can come and snatch up your stuff. That's what happened with Cole. The Steelers were waiting in the weeds. And Cole wanted to be here. He made it clear that he wanted to come back to Washington. I am anxious to see what this deal is all about, this 3-year deal that he got. Because it better be, every bit of 3 years. If it's anything less than 3 years, $21 million, I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to be pissed. If this is a 3-year, $18 million deal, if this is a 3-year, $15 million deal, anything south of 15, I'm going to be livid. But I expect Cole to leave for a 3-year, 15, 3-year, 18, type of deal if he couldn't get that here. My problem is he should have been able to get that here. Now, if you didn't think he was worthy of a 7 or 8 per, okay, that's fine. And if the Steelers anteed up and gave him a 3-year 21, a 3-year 24, okay. But my thing is, you think Logan Thomas is worthy of a 3-year 24, but Cole isn't? If that deal isn't lucrative, and I know the Steelers aren't out here just handing bread out. That's not what they do. So that's a very modest 3-year deal. Can't wait to see the parameters there, right? Because I guarantee you that's a 3-year 15, 3-year 17, something along those lines. And I'm like, we couldn't have done that. The same way I felt when I looked at the Bills contract for JD. I was like, oh, shit, he's going to Buffalo. Bills must have anteed up. And then you see it's 2 years, $7 million. You're like, we couldn't match that shit. And then they say, yeah, wait, JD, baby, where you going? 2 years, $7 million. We can do that. We can do that. I'm looking at this contract, and I can't wait to see what it looks like. It better be something where I can say, all right, I get it. We weren't looking to pay that. I understand. I like Cole. I don't love him that much. But I don't think that's what it's going to be. I'm going to see this deal. It's going to be a meager deal. I'm going to say, y'all were penny pinching over a couple of mil, and you let him walk for that shit? And we're supposed to be excited about Cody effing Barton? And I got into it on Twitter. It wasn't, anything egregious, right? But I got into it with a couple of people on Twitter who tried to just act as if it's okay to make a lateral move because they're assuming Cody Barton is a lateral move. Oh, he's very comparable to Cole Holcomb. If that's the case, why are you doing it? Over a couple of bucks? Why are you making a lateral move? Again, there are effects that these have in the locker room. You can't tell guys if you do it the right way, you will be rewarded here. And then a guy goes out and does it the right way and has to go get paid somewhere else. So I just find it hard to believe that they let Cole walk because they think that Cody Barton is going to be able to do the exact same thing Cole brought to the table. I just, for those who think that's the case, I think you're sadly mistaken. I really do. But we'll see what happens with that situation. And maybe they'll be proven right. And maybe they'll draft a guy that comes in here. And look, I was all for upgrading the position. You guys know that. I talked about this deep linebacker class of free agents and how I was salivating at the chance to get our hands on one to potentially upgrade the position. But if you're going to make a lateral move, I'd much rather just stick with Cole Holcomb. Give me the devil that I know rather than the devil that I don't know. Because, again, as I pointed out, Cole was starting to get better. People act as if Cole had reached his apex. Somebody said, "Hey, Louie T, come on, man. Cole had already maxed out, on his potential. He was what he was." No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. This guy had been through multiple coaching staffs, multiple regimes. He had been through a 3-4 defense. Then he came to a 4-3 defense. He was an outside linebacker. Now he's an inside linebacker. He had gone through all these changes, and he was finally settling in at middle linebacker, and he was starting to play well, and then he got injured. Don't tell me that the best of Cole Holcomb had already come and gone. Yeah, right. So, was Cole Holcomb an all-pro linebacker? No, he wasn't even a Pro Bowl linebacker. He's not irreplaceable. That was never the argument, and the debate was never whether he was irreplaceable. We can't go without Cole Holcomb. It was either you're going to upgrade over Cole or just bring him back. That was the debate. That was the conversation. Either you're going to upgrade middle linebacker or just bring Cole back. Not make a side lateral step. That makes zero sense to me. You're bringing an outsider in here, a funny looking, that guys are looking at sideways and saying, y'all got rid of Cole for this dude right here? As a matter of fact, as I talk about that, as I say that, let's get into a little bit of that conversation, right? So John Keim had this tweet earlier today where he pretty much said Washington is looking for another linebacker. I told you, Cody Barton can't be it. I was talking to those people on Twitter, one in particular, who tried to make it seem like, again, Cody Barton is either a lateral move that we should be okay with or an upgrade over Cole Holcomb. And I'm like, understand this. Like, he was probably like, hey, they know something about Cody Barton that we don't. Oh, really? I can tell you this, and this is from my experience. Again, I'm no expert, just my experience. What I've seen over the years doing this, following the league as close as anybody who is not actually affiliated with the league can. Okay, this is my personal experience and what I've gathered in that time frame. And no, I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night. If you love a player, if you think you know something, if you know about a player, not think, you know about a player coming off of his rookie deal, going into the prime of his career, if you know this guy is good, you're not giving him a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal. The essence of a prove-it deal is, I'm not sure. Prove it to me. Make me a believer. We know what Cole Holcomb is. You don't have to guess. You don't have to wonder if he fits in your scheme, if he fits in the locker room. Are the other guys going to be able to play off of him? Is he going to assimilate well to what you want to do schematically? You already know these things. If they truly loved Cody Barton, that's a 3-year deal. They know what Andrew Wiley is about, 3-year deal. They know what Nick Gates is about when healthy, 3-year deal. They're not giving out 1-year prove-it deals to guys that they're sure about. Nobody didn't alter Carson Wentz's contract yet last year. You know, they picked up $28 million. They weren't sure. Didn't want to have any money on the books in future years. They wanted to just have a clean break if he wasn't good. Ronald Darby came here. They signed him to a 1-year deal. Why? He had come off of years of injuries. They weren't sure. They know he was talented, but they weren't sure if they were going to get a good football player or one that could even stay healthy. So they signed him to a 1-year deal. They weren't sure. When you're sure, it's a 3-year deal. It's a multi-year deal. They're not sure about Cody Barton. So don't try to convince me otherwise. Like, they know something. They don't know a damn thing, which is why they gave him a 1-year deal. And that's why they went and they're looking for other linebackers. John Keim writes, Washington would like to sign another linebacker. Duh. Cody Barton can't be the answer. Can't be the answer, especially on a one-year deal. They prefer to re-sign Cole Holcomb, but they remain apart with the money. Outside of a couple of top linebackers, the money would be more modest. A lot of good choices lessened the need to spend really big money for the rest. Facts. We talked about that. I told y'all before free agency got underway, before the tampering period, I said there are so many options available that you're probably not going to see Washington spend a shit ton of money on any of these linebackers because you're not going to be forced to give up the bread because there's only two guys out there in free agency worth a damn. And so you're bidding against other teams. There's enough to go around. Everybody can cherry pick the one that they want. If you got a little bit of extra bread that you can spend like Chicago, you can go out there and go get Tremaine Edmonds. You can go out there and get TJ Edwards and spend a little bit of bread for that, right? You got a little bit less money, you can do what the Dolphins did and go and get David Long Jr. Senior for $11 million over 2 years, right? Not a lot of money. It's 5.5 per. So I'm looking around and I'm saying, you trying to tell me that whatever Cole got, and again, I'm going to be paying close attention because if that's a 3-year, $15 million deal, I'm pissed off because I'm saying we couldn't have done that. We're not that hard off on cash, right? We're not that hard up where we can't spend 3 years, $15 million on a guy that's homegrown product. So again, if it's 3 years, 21, I'm like, okay, even though I'm still pissed off about that, okay, all right, I get it. If you didn't want to spend $7 million on Cole, whatever. But to me, you penny pinching. For what? This ain't last off season where you didn't have it. You got it, right? Just because you got it don't mean you got to spend it, but that's a guy that you can spend it on. But at least that tweet from John Keim reassures me. And remember, I told you, I didn't want to push off my insecurities on y'all because I said they've been smart all off season. The moves that they've made have been shrewd. They've been calculated, and I've been a fan of them. I'm going to assume that they understand that Cody Barton isn't the answer, and that shouldn't be the end-all, be-all at linebacker. I'm going to continue to tell myself that because telling myself the opposite would drive me crazy. Because my brain is too rational. I can't rationalize that. It can't process that because that's foolishness. But they're not being foolish right now. So at least John is telling me they wanted Cole back. The numbers weren't meeting up. They weren't matching. I want to see what the contract looks like. But the more important part of that tweet is Washington would like to sign another linebacker. That's it. You don't have to say nothing else to me. Because I don't have a problem with Cody Barton being on the roster. We've already established that. I have a problem with Cody Barton being written in pen or marker as the starter. He can be penciled in temporarily, but as soon as we get something better, erase his goddamn name, put him on that next line down, and put the other guy's name in there that should be starting. Here's what I'm talking about when we start talking about players in the locker room, right? Like, continuity is something you can't pay for. It's priceless. And I get it. Players establish relationships with guys. You know, Tez and Cole Holcomb came into the league the same year in 2019. They were part of the same draft class. So there's going to be an attachment there, right? Cam Curl, since he's been here, 55 has been here. Cole Holcomb's been here. His rookie season was Cole's second year in the league. So there's an attachment, right? That goes with these players on the defensive side of the football. You've been here. These guys have been there the entire careers together. Cam Curl tweets out, not 55. Not my guy, not 55, man. Not 55. Yeah, 55 got, man. Pop. He got. And the problem with not 55 is 55 ain't going to cost you that much money. This linebacker we talking about. Linebacker is one of the lowest paid positions in the NFL. It's a very volatile market. Either you are upper echelon and you getting broken off like Tremaine Edmonds or Roquan Smith? Or are you down here fighting for pennies like David Long Jr., right? Like, there's a middle ground. Guys like Matt Milano getting some good money, right? But it's pretty much like the running back position. Either you getting top of the market money or you down here just trying to get by. Cole ain't about to get broken off in Pittsburgh. That's a problem. That's problematic. And then Montez Sweat piggybacks off of not 55, right? How Cole ain't get paid? How Cole ain't get paid? It's one thing if you see a dude, and Cole is one of the dudes that we looked at as a leader on this team. I loved his demeanor. Loved how he addressed the players in the locker room. Loved his mentality. I called him Mullet Man. That was my guy. Players ain't feeling this shit. Now, this Juice tweet doesn't have anything to do with anything. I just want you to tap into the mind of players in the locker room. Now, Juice is a little different. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's an intellectual thinker. He thinks outside the box. He's not afraid to say how he feels. And so he'll just randomly drop a gem on your melon for no reason other than it was on his heart. So he decided to pass it on. I love Juice. Juice writes, we have to emphasize the fact that trust, in all caps, is the most expensive thing in the world. It takes years to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair. Truer words were never spoken. That's one of those a wise man once told me type of quotes you might hear from me 3 months from now. Now you know where it came from. But I told you football is a microcosm, sports for that matter, microcosm of life. I want to take this tweet from Benjamin St. Juste and apply it to the locker room. When a coach tells you something, you hold him to that statement that he made to you. If he tells you something, you take it as the gospel truth. Why? Because he wants you to trust him. He wants to build that rapport with you. It's called buy-in in a locker room. It's called buy-in. Coaches and staffs want players to buy in. When Ron first got here, there was not 100% buy-in. They didn't like how Sam Mills III was coaching up the defensive line. There were issues with some of the things that were being done, and the players didn't like it. Ron said, you guys were a 3-win team last year. Shut up and buy in. Just trust me. So when you tell me if you do it the right way, you're going to be rewarded, I trust you. I trust you. So when I see Jonathan Allen do it the right way and get paid, I trust you. When I see Terry McLaurin do it the right way, he gets paid, I trust you. When I see Daron Payne, who could have sat out of OTAs, could have made a big stink out of not getting paid last year, but he showed up and did it the right way. And what did Ron say? He did it the right way, and so we're going to reward him for doing things that we asked him to do and then going above and beyond the call of duty on the field. He did it the right way, so we're going to pay him. And they paid him. So when Cole Holcomb does it the right way, he's not on the level of Daron Payne or Terry McLaurin or Jonathan Allen. He's not on their level. Not going to have to pay him nearly as much either. He did it the right way. Yeah, he suffered an injury. Shit happens. But it wasn't enough to get him back in Washington. I'm not saying the players don't trust Ron. And again, this tweet doesn't have anything to do with the locker room or Ron Rivera or any of that. I'm just telling you what Juice is saying is facts. And when you see players saying, wait a minute. And it's not uncommon for players to be frustrated when a teammate goes elsewhere. A.J. Brown just had a tweet about Darius Slay being let go from Philadelphia, right? Like, players don't want to see other really good players leave. But Slay's 33 years old. Okay? Slade was going to count double digits against the cap. They needed the relief. They are at number 10 in the draft. They can draft a young boy to replace Darius Slade. That makes sense. Cole Holcomb is going to cost you pennies on the dollar. His contract may not even be in excess of $10 million. You couldn't get that done? Again, this is the last time we're going to really harp on this, because at the end of the day, there's plenty of time. And I don't want to make it seem like Cole Holcomb was an all-pro backer, because he wasn't. We can find someone to replace Cole Holcomb. What I'm saying is, you better find someone to replace Cole Holcomb and make the players forget that you didn't bring 55 back. Because if 55 goes over to Pittsburgh and kicks ass, and we bring in a bum who's not kicking ass, people are going to start to wonder, what the hell are you doing here anyway, Ron? Ron could be on the way out anyway, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to give him time to fix this mistake, because this is a mistake. Personally, if you weren't going to be aggressive in the linebacker market, if you weren't going to go out and get a guy that we felt like upgraded you at that position, then at a bare minimum, you should have at least brought Cole back. I got no problems with Cody Barton. This is not about Cody Barton. This only becomes about Cody Barton if you try to convince me that he's our new starting middle linebacker. That's when Cody Barton becomes inserted into the conversation. Right now, Cody Barton is a fine acquisition. We can't be done. And John just told me we're not done. So I'm okay for now. I also want to talk about another player that is no longer here. And that player, that coach is John Matsko. So what a difference a year makes, right? What a difference a year makes. Last year, this time, I swore to you guys, if there's one coach on the staff, and this was after we had moved on from our tight ends coach. Well, he had moved on and retired because he was getting some results. And we had results out of our tight ends last year. You know, to see a guy like Amani Rodgers come on board and make the transition from quarterback in his first year, not like he made the transition in college. This was his first time. It reminded me of Quentin Dunbar. Jay Gruden watching him as a gunner saying, hey, you're a corner, right? I mean, you're a wide receiver, right? Hey, you should play corner. Him flipping sides and actually being good in his first year. Not great, but good. Like, oh, okay, we got something here potentially. Same way I feel about Amani Rodgers. You have to give credit to the tight ends coach for that. Okay? So, Pete Hainer was no longer on the roster, the coaching staff. So I felt like the next best coach on the staff going into last year was John Matsko. We're talking positional coaches. Or at least the one that I trust the most. And I remember making this statement very vividly. Doesn't matter what 5 you give John Matsko, he's going to shine him up, he's going to put him out on the field, and he's going to get the best out of him. Boy, was I wrong. We found that out real quick, and I mocked myself all year long based off of that statement. By the time we got to week 3, that statement was in the trash. And I was killing myself all year for it. Oh, John Matsko can take any 5 linemen, throw them in there and shine them up and get production out of them. No, the hell he cannot. Okay? We saw that last year. However, I didn't think he was going to be fired. Now, Eric Bieniemy has come in, and the man is playing no games. None. Okay? At all. And we've talked about some of the moves made. Bringing in the receiver. bringing in Andrew Wiley, reshuffling the deck, quarterbacks coach, receiver coach, all of that good stuff. Here's another Eric Bieniemy move. Let's read this tweet from John Keim, who writes, Washington's decision to fire offensive line coach John Matsko was described as philosophical differences. Matsko's career had mostly been spent in a different system than what new OC Eric Bieniemy will use. The Commanders could opt to promote assistant line coach Travell Wharton, who I like. So, first of all, I like that we're going to be running a different system because I wasn't a fan of what we were running in terms of how we ran the football. Now, pass blocking may be a little bit different, and the assignments and the way they do things may be a little bit different. We'll see. But I wasn't a big fan of how they ran the football. We were more of a zone running team, which is okay. It's fine. But we don't have zone running offensive lineman personnel. We got big physical offensive linemen. You should be running more power, which is when we ran things like counters and dives and things of that nature, we had more success. When we ran power, right? We had more success than when we tried to run outside zone and stretch, right? Inside zone, outside zone, because that's not what our linemen excel at. So I don't have a problem with them switching up what they're trying to do. So Matsko's gone. Gone. Yeah, he gone. Y'all remember, this has nothing to do with nothing. I'm going off on a tangent real quick. Y'all remember when Puffy had the Making the Band show on MTV, and he brought in them dudes to challenge the dudes that were already in the house, and they were battle singing. I had never seen battle singing before. And one dude came in and he sung NSYNC's Gone, but he was singing it in like a trying to be hard way. It was hilarious. Anyway, I digress. I wonder what this is going to net us. Either this is going to be a great move, or this could blow up in our face. I like John Matsko. I thought he did a really good job considering the circumstances here in Washington, and I got nothing bad to say about him. Didn't get it done last year. I don't think he was given the best pieces to get anything done last season. Injuries didn't help, but it was flawed from the start when you tell us, hey, here's a couple of old, borderline 30-somethings and Trey Turner and Andrew Norwell from a blast from your past. Hey, man, clean them up again. Shine them up. Make them run right. Anyway, we'll see what they decide to do, who they put in that role now. Will they promote from within? Will they go out and get someone from the outside and bring them in? We'll see. Anyway, so let's talk about Heineke now and what his former coach, Bobby Wilder, had to say. Now, Wilder was the former head coach of the Old Dominion Monarchs. He was there when Heineke was there. And to me, in my experience, people aren't this outspoken unless they have information directly from the source. Like Bobby Wilder, first of all, isn't a dummy. Okay. Very smart guy. And he's not going to make profound statements like this unless he could validate them, essentially. He has a reason to feel the way that he feels. because he was told directly by Taylor Heineke. He's got firsthand knowledge here. So this excerpt that you see is this is all transcribed from a podcast episode with Al Galdi, who had Bobby Wilder on his show to talk about Washington's situation. They talked about a number of different topics. Eric Bieniemy, Scott Turner being fired, this, that, and the third. But really, his expertise and the reason Al Galdi really had him on was to talk about Taylor Heineke. How the situation was handled last year. Does he think he's going to be back? And let's kind of see what Wilder had to say. So he said this about Taylor Heineke. Quote, "It really scarred him last year," him being Heineke. "Really bothered him when he was benched against the number one defense in the league at San Francisco. There is a sense of loyalty from Taylor to the Commanders, but being benched, that really bothered him." Close quote. Let's stop right there. But we talked about Heineke feeling some type of way last year, right? Remember? I told you guys Heineke was the reason Sam Howell got the Week 18 start versus Dallas. They were going to go back to Heineke as if they were doing Heineke some type of favor. Like, oh, we made a mistake. We should have never benched you. We're going to give you a chance to start in Week 18 in a meaningless game. And Heineke's like, F you? Come again? I'm not playing. He gave us the old Vince Young treatment. Go ahead, let Curry have it. Let Curry have it. Right? Let Curry have it. Let Sam have it. I don't need to play in Week 18 in a meaningless game. I'm going to be a free agent. F that shit. What if I get hurt? Put Sam in. He's put in the time. Like, I love how Taylor framed it. Like, man, Sam's put in work this year. Sam deserves this opportunity. No, he was like, F y'all. I'm about to be a free agent. I'm not getting hurt in Week 18 because you decided that you wanted to, make amends for a mistake you made last week. It's too late. We out of the playoffs. Kiss my ass. Put Sam in the game. And that's what they did. They put Sam in after Taylor said, I'm not playing, pretty much. Put Sam in. So, and good for him. And I said it at that time. I said, good for Taylor. Don't let him use you up. And then they decide they want to throw you back in there. To hell with that. And I told you this offseason, Taylor sounded like a man that was looking to move on. I told y'all that. When he was making his rounds on Super Bowl Row, right? And he was talking to all these different podcasts and all these different radio programs. And I had that one clip. I think he was on with Pat McAfee. And Pat McAfee was asking him about, would he like to come back to Washington? He said, yeah, I mean, that's cool. But, there's other teams out there that I wouldn't mind playing for. He cited Green Bay. I don't think he said Atlanta, but we knew that was home for him, right? Atlanta's home. Sister still lives there. So not shocked by that. But he was definitely feeling some type of way. And I'm pretty sure he told his former head coach that, which is why he feels confident in saying this. Let's move on. Quote, as a head coach, you have to know and manage your locker room. I think that Wentz starting versus Cleveland was the biggest mistake he could have made. That was a huge mistake by Ron, and that really hurt the relationship. I don't disagree with that at all. What happened at the workplace was not done in a professional manner. Now, we don't know anything about that part. Clearly, Heineke told him something about how things went down, and he didn't think that it was done in a way that was respectful to him and what he had done for the team. Okay, excuse me. We could tell that the shit was janky because, remember, Ron was going to go back to Taylor. Then Taylor told him, without saying it right, he did it in a respectful way, but he told him, kiss my ass. I'm not starting. And then Ron came with some bullshit like, oh, we're going to start Taylor, but we're going to also play, Sam. And Taylor's like, no, you're not, he tried to dress it up. And then eventually he came out and said, we're going to roll with Sam. Like he tried to clean it up. But that was all Taylor telling him, bro, kick rocks. I don't think Ron handled that the way he needed to handle it. I feel like there was some animosity there. I feel like in Ron's mind, Taylor was receiving too much credit for the turnaround. Now, I think that is Wilder's opinion. I don't think Taylor Heineke told him that. Like, oh, I think he felt jealous of me. But is that the first time that I told you? Is this the first time? No, not that I told you. Is this the first time you've heard somebody say that Ron was maybe a little jealous, felt like he wasn't getting enough credit, and made a decision based off of that? I already told y'all what was happening with Kyle Smith. Now, I still maintain that Kyle Smith was moved on from because Ron didn't trust most of the people in the building before he got here. I think there were only one or two holdovers from the previous regime, and they were coaches. You don't really worry about coaches. You worry about people over your head being cutthroat and stabbing you in the back. You don't worry about a guy that's working for you. You worry about people that you work for. And so if he left Kyle Smith in that position, not really knowing Kyle Smith, and Kyle decided, I can hire a better coach than Ron Rivera. He can go to Dan Snyder, get in his ear like Bruce Allen did, and turn shit sideways. He didn't trust him. And I think that was the biggest problem. But I also threw this out, and I can't confirm nor deny this. I also told you, Ron sounded salty during the season. And he even made it easily identifiable that he was feeling some type of way because he was asked about the job that Kyle Smith did, bringing in XYZ players. And Ron was like, I brought those players in here. I did that. Kyle's doing an okay job. We know how Ron goes over the top in praise when he likes someone and how he smiles. That shit-eating grin comes onto his face and he lights up and he starts talking very profusely about someone. When he's done with you, you get the cold shoulder, you get a one-liner, and he's done. We've seen that before too. I find that to be interesting. That he thinks Ron was feeling a little jealous about Taylor getting so much of the credit for the turnaround of the season. I don't know if I buy into that as much, but I wouldn't put it past Ron. I wouldn't put it past him. We all have egos, That's interesting, though. He says, it was time to move on in a different direction. Taylor felt he needed to make sure he could end the season as healthy as possible and not go out and get injured in a meaningless game against Dallas. At that point, it was clear there needed to be a separation. Allow everyone to move on. Closed quote. So Taylor had already decided once he got benched against San Francisco and they inserted Carson into the game, he would have been fine if they would have benched Carson midway through the second quarter against Cleveland. He would have been fine. He still would have felt some type of way. But if you can admit a mistake while it's still correctable, while you still got a chance to fix it, we can move forward. But Ron, he sat in that shit. He sat there and he stewed in a mistake. Stubborn and unwilling to be flexible and malleable and adjust and adapt to what was happening in front of him on the field. He gave us that bullshit ass stoic, folded arms, lost in space look, and he watched our season whittle away in a game where he didn't even know we could be eliminated in. And Heineke, he took all of that shit in. And he said, bro, I got a future to worry about. F what he talking about. On Heineke's future, Wilder continues, quote, in my mind, Ron has moved on from Taylor Heineke. If they make a move to Sam Howell next year and he throws a pick in the first game, you and I both know what's going to happen. They are going to chant his name again because he's that lovable guy. Ron did not handle this quarterback situation well throughout the season. Remember his statement before the Bears game about quarterbacks in the NFC East division? Facts. When Wilder heard the fans chanting Heineke, quote, this is not very good for the team right now. If they make a move to Sam Howell next year and he throws a pick in the first game, what is the crowd going to do if Taylor is over there on the sideline? As soon as I heard that chant for Taylor, I thought, this is probably the end for Taylor in Washington. What have we talked about this offseason? Even though I told you that wasn't a deterrent for me personally, there were fans out there that specifically cited this before Wilder even went on Al Galdi's podcast. Fans are smart. We're smart, okay? We are able to take a situation and start to draw inferences and fill in the blanks on what we think is going to happen in the future. And a lot of you said, Heineke can't be here next year. Not if you want to give Sam a fair shot. And not that Ron even gives a shit. Clearly he didn't, because if he did last year, he would have pulled Carson Wentz's funky ass after the second pick. After the first pick, they were chanting Heineke's name. But, okay, if you don't want to pull him out after the first pass of the game that gets picked off, okay, I get it. But after the second one, clearly your mans doesn't have it today. At that point, it's time to move on. A lot of you said, if Heineke's here next year, this is a problem because Sam's not going to get the fair shake that he deserves. That's what my guy Bobby Wilder's saying as well. So I find all of that interesting. A lot of what he just gave us, that came directly from Taylor. The situation not being handled professionally, him feeling hurt and feeling like there was a sense of loyalty that, was not there. The trust wasn't there anymore. That all came from Taylor Heineke. Heineke wanted out. And look, a $20 million payday is enough reason in itself for Taylor to be like, deuces. Because if there was not a market out there for him and Washington was the only one willing to pay him good money, he'd be back here in Washington. We can sit here and talk all this shit we want. But the market was out there for him. And I told you it would be. And $14 million for Taylor Heineke, which is what the deal is in excess, 2 years, $14 million, $7 million per year. That's more money than he's made in his entire career combined. He's going to make that this season. Good for him. Good for him. Falcons can get out of that deal after the first year, only paying $7 million. They'll only have a $2 million cap hit next year if they don't want to be in the Heineke business next year. We'll see what happens, but good for Heineke. He's no longer here, and I have no problems with that. I have none. We'll see what they decide to do. We're not done in free agency, clearly, because we still haven't brought a quarterback in here. So until that happens, we're going to have, more moves to make. They're going to bring at least a quarterback in here. Baker Mayfield's off the board. I never thought he was an option here anyway. I still think it's going to be a Jacoby Brissett. I've been saying this all offseason. It's going to be a Jacoby Brissett, Teddy Bridgewater type. That's the guy they're going to end up bringing in here. Gardner Minshew, one of those types of guys. Okay? So, and all of those guys are still available at last, check. So, we'll see what happens. All in all, John Keim also reported that Washington was still in talks with Cam Sims to potentially bring him back. So that's good news. He talked about them still being in contact with a couple of other players that they may want to, bring in. Let me go and see if I can track down that particular tweet from John Keim to see exactly who he said that the team was still looking to bring back. He said, would be surprised if wide receiver Cam Sims, offensive lineman Tyler Larson, and D lineman F.A. Obata go elsewhere. So he would be surprised if they didn't re-sign with Washington. He said Washington has been in contact with them all along, working on deals. Jeremy Reeves is back. Remember, he was a restricted free agent. They tendered him, so he'll be back. They want a long-term deal with him. They would like to sign him to like a 3-year deal or so, but right now they just want to make sure he's still in Washington, so they tendered him, and he'll be back next year. But Keim also added, of course, I've been surprised before, so not saying that those guys are guaranteed to be back, but I'm going to be interested to see if they bring Cam Sims back, because I told you I thought it was an if proposition, or excuse me, or proposition, not an and, with the wide receiver they brought in from Kansas City. All right. I thought that was an or, not an and. And Larson is interesting because he's been injured each of the last 2 seasons. He's been actually really solid for us when he's been healthy, but he's past the age of 30, which is not a big deal for an offensive lineman. But I think the guys that have been banged up last couple of years, I thought they were going to go in a different direction. But I wouldn't have a problem if they brought back Tyler Larson. If he's healthy, I'm good with it. And then F.A. Obata played well last year. We talked about this already. He's 31, I believe, but his 31 isn't the same as someone who's been playing football their entire life. They're 31. He's a late bloomer, got to football late, so not as much mileage and tread off of those tires. So I wouldn't have a problem with F.A. being brought back. I thought he played well last year. So I told you I would prefer them to go into the draft and get a young defensive end, another offensive lineman. And if instead of bringing Cam Sims back, if you're going to keep the other receiver you brought from Kansas City, instead of bringing Cam Sims back, go find us a punt returner. Go find us a guy that can handle punt and kickoff returns. Go do that. If you want to bring Cam Sims back, then Dax Milne has to go. Somebody got to go, because we can't do this punt return shit again. Like, Dax is cool, but we got to upgrade that. And I really would prefer it if Antonio Gibson isn't back on kickoffs either. Find someone that can do both of those things. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. So we're not done in free agency. And again, it's just getting started. Free agency officially begins at 4:00 today. We are just getting started. There's no reason to panic. This has been a really good offseason to this point, and nothing they've done I've had a problem with to this point. Even allowing Cole Holcomb to walk, even though I want to see those numbers and see what that deal looks like, even if it's a deal that I'm going to be pissed about, that I'll be pissed about, I'm still okay with them moving on from him if they go out and get a backer that we feel like upgrades the position. And as long as they do that, I got no issues. Whether that's in free agency or the draft, doesn't bother me one bit, and I have no preference. The only way I'll have an issue with what they just did with Cole Holcomb is if they try to convince me that Cody Barton is the answer at linebacker, because I refuse to believe that. And I could be wrong, and he could be the answer. But sitting here right now on March the 15th, I don't believe that. And I'm not going to. So we'll see what happens. But in any event, let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. Got a few supers here. So we'll get to some of these. We'll get to these super chats, and then we'll get out of here. All right. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JP writes, I'm starting to get frustrated. This is why I don't get hyped for free agency anymore. We need big splashes now. Slay and Eckler are available. Wake up, Ron. I really feel like you get too caught up in big splashes. Like, don't allow what the other teams in the division have done to cloud your judgment. It's not about big splashes in free agency. It's about substance. All right. It's about substance. I'm not here for the wow factor or the look at me signings or trades. I mean, Darren Waller being added to the Giants roster, that's substance. Okay. The Cowboys trading for Stephon Gilmore at 33 years old, when the Eagles just moved on from Darius Slay, who I think is playing better football than Stephon Gilmore, I don't really know if that's substance at this point. That's a name. I think you fall in love with too many names, JP. Austin Eckler is cool, but when you already got Antonio Gibson on the roster and you got Brian Robinson Jr., how many snaps do you think Eckler is going to be on the field for? Are you going to be able to maximize? Because he wants to be paid. There's a reason why he's not staying in LA. He wants a new deal. How much are you willing to pay a 28-year-old linebacker? Darius Slay is 33 years old. Ron has not done this since he's came on board. He's not signing 30-plus-year-old guys, especially corners of that age. Maybe a 31 or 32-year-old offensive lineman. He's shown us that he doesn't mind taking a flyer on one of those guys. But for the most part, we're staying away from the 32, 33-year-old veteran. And even though Slay's still playing some good football, we got a chance to draft a guy this year. We just picked up a kid off of waivers. They're not looking to add a 33-year-old Darius Slay, who will not come cheap either. So I don't agree with you on that, JP. Anyway, I digress. But we'll agree to disagree on that one. I know that's your style and that's what you want, and that's cool. But I think that they've done a solid job. I don't really have a problem with what they've done to this point. Rob Yu, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Rob Yu writes, Lou, what up? What's going on, Rob Yu? Man, this one hurt. I've always been a Cole fan. If they signed David Long, I'd be okay. But damn, man. Again, it didn't have to be David Long. It didn't have to be Bobby Okereke. It didn't have to be TJ Edwards. It didn't have to be Azeez Al-Shire. It didn't have to be one of these guys with a name. It needed to be a guy that we looked at as an upgrade. That's it. And again, could be in the draft. Could be a young boy in the draft, and I wouldn't have any issues with that either. But with all the veteran linebackers who were going into the prime of their careers, who were coming off of rookie deals that were available, I just figured with the amount of cap space that we had at our disposal, they were going to be aggressive at that position, just like they were along the offensive line. I just assumed that they wouldn't be so nonchalant and laissez-faire with the linebacker position as if it's been a good position since they got here. For two guys in Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, who were former NFL linebackers, you would think the linebacker position would be in much better shape since they got here. It's been a mess. And it continues to be until they finally man up, admit that they haven't gotten it right yet, and fix it. And I don't think Cody Barton is fixing the problem. There's still work to be done. And again, I expect them to continue to do work there and complete the job. So while I wanted Cole back, I told you somebody's always watching your stuff. It's never safe. Even when you think it's safe. Man played in 7 games last year. You think it was safe, but I told you the NFL Network, NFL.com, had a top 100 free agents list, and Cole was at number 50. People were still paying attention to what he had done in Washington. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. We played against the Steelers back in 2020. These teams, they don't forget. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Twin D, writes, so we don't have Cole Holcomb or David Long. Here we go again. The M&M boys, mired in mediocrity. Hey, I love this time of the year because fans get so riled up. Somebody was on Twitter and they hit me up and they said, hey, man, Louie T, you got to talk some sense into these fans, man. They about to drive me insane. I'm like, bro, let them be fans. All right? Let them do whatever they feel like they need to do. I'm going to give JP the space he needs to rant and rave after Austin Eckler ends up somewhere else. And he ends up in Indianapolis. I'm going to let him rant and rave about that when Darius Slay signs with the Minnesota Vikings. Okay? I'm going to let him rant and rave about that. Let him have all the space he needs. Because free agency, the draft, this time of the year means something totally different for everyone. You don't win games in March. I've already stressed this. You start to build the foundation for what you're going to ultimately do in September, October, November, and into December, and hopefully January and February. You're building that foundation right now, but you're not winning anything. I had an Eagles fan hit me up and say, hey, y'all ahead of us right now, but we still going to beat y'all in this offseason. I'm like, go right ahead. Be my guest. You can win the offseason. But the last time I checked, we got y'all when it counted. That's what I'm about. So I'm not here to talk anybody off of a ledge. I'm not here to tell anybody you shouldn't feel this way or feel that way. We can agree to disagree, but I don't think this offseason has been bad. I actually like what they've done. I think the moves have been shrewd. They've been calculated. I do feel like they're penny pinching a bit at linebacker. I'm not a big fan of that because at some point, this offseason has been all about doing something different, right? That's been the mindset this offseason. Not going to stay with the status quo. We're going to try something different. They've done it in almost every single avenue except linebacker. They're still doing the same shit. They bring back David Mayo again. Go sign Cody Barton. We're still running on the hamster wheel. When are we going to do something different? This was an opportunity for them to say, you know what? If we're not going to bring back Cole Holcomb, let's do something different. Let's go out here and spend $27 million on the linebacker position and sign somebody to a 3-year, $27 million deal. Let's go out here and sign somebody to a 3-year, $24 million deal. Let's go out here and attack this thing aggressively and go get one of these linebackers that's available. Nah, that ain't what they decided to do at linebacker. Why? Because I think their ego is like, hey, we can take anybody and make them a good line. Well, you ain't done this shit yet. I'm still waiting. Tick, mother effing tock. Starface. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Starface writes, stop overrating Cole. He's not an all-pro / Pro Bowler. Nobody ever said he was. Nobody ever said he was. This is the problem with some of you when we have these discussions is that you go to one end of the spectrum or the other. You go to one extreme or the other. Cole is not an all-pro. He's not a Pro Bowler. He's not a scrub. He's in the middle. He's somewhere in between. And that's okay. Nobody ever was making an argument as if he was irreplaceable. I've already stated this. But you much rather deal with the devil you know than the devil you don't know. We know what Cole Holcomb is and what he isn't. And I contend, and again, this is my opinion. You may not feel this way, and that's absolutely fine. But I contend that he was still ascending. There was still more in the Cole Holcomb talent pool to tap into. He had just, again, when you lay out the way that his career went in Washington, he came into the league playing in a 3-4 defense that first year under Jay Gruden. All right? Gruden gets canned, and we switch to a 4-3 under Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio. So he's got to learn a new system. All right? And now he's playing outside backer. Instead of playing, in this 3-4 defense where he's an inside linebacker, now he's playing outside linebacker. All right. So now he's got to learn another position. Okay. And he actually has a damn good season in 2021, right? Playing outside backer. Then in 2022, they finally say, you know what, Cole? Cole begged at the end of the 21 season, give me the green dot permanently. You gave it to me last year. You gave me a little taste. I really enjoyed that. It took me back to my college years at North Carolina. Let me get the green dot permanently. Let me show you what I can do. I'm telling you, I can handle the responsibility of being the leader of this defense. They give him the green dot, and by week 7, he had this shit going. He was playing well. I thought he was playing the best football, arguably, of his career. He gets hurt. I would have liked to have seen them pick up where they left off with that and see if there was more that we could get to. Jamin was starting to get comfortable. You know why Jamin was getting comfortable? Because he trusts Cole. That's his boy. Cole was making sure he was where he was supposed to be so Jamin didn't have to think. Ain't nobody overrating Cole Holcomb. All we're stating is that if you're not going to upgrade the position, why are we taking a lateral step? What sense does that make? Where's the psychological sense in that? Make that make sense for me. It doesn't make sense. That's all. Either you're upgrading the position or just bring Cole Holcomb back. That's it. Nobody called him an all-pro. Nobody called him a pro bowler. Bet up. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Bet up writes, are there any good star linebackers left in free agency? I don't know the answer to that. Let's check and see. Let's see who's available. Free agent. Linebackers 2023. All right. I don't like that list. So, top 10 linebackers. Drew Tranquil is still out there from the Chargers. Alex Singleton went back to Denver. Caden Ellis signed with the Atlanta Falcons. Leighton Vander Esch went back to Dallas. Bobby Okereke signed with the Giants. Jermaine Pratt went back to the Bengals. TJ Edwards signed with the Bears. Tremaine Edmonds signed with the Bears. David Long signed with the Miami Dolphins. And Levante David is still available. He's 33 years old. I am not interested, even though he is a really good football player and actually doesn't show any signs of letting up. But I will pass on him. So, yeah. Available linebackers. There aren't any really good names on this particular list, but sometimes these lists on this particular site are a little janky. So let me switch it up a little bit and see. All right. So Deion Jones is still available. Devin Bush is still available. Sean Evans is still available. Quan Alexander, Jayon Brown, AJ Klein. Yeah, no. No, I mean, Drew Tranquil is still available. Landon Roberts, not really interested. Yeah, I mean, all of the guys that we really saw as filling out this group: Tremaine Edmonds, Bobby Okereke, Caden Ellis, Jermaine Pratt, TJ Edwards, Alex Singleton, David Long, Kaiser White, Leighton Vander Esch, Levante David did sign back with Tampa Bay, looks like. Cole Holcomb, Aziz Al-Shire, all of these dudes already signed. I mean, a lot of these, it was a deep group and everybody reached in and grabbed theirs. And we grabbed Cody Barton. So, yeah, there's not many big time names left. I don't know what they're going to do. But again, there's still the draft as well. And there's still the secondary market too. So, this isn't a great draft at linebacker, but it's not a terrible draft. There's some good football players in there. And if you do your homework and you find what guy fits what you want to do, I think you can come away with a good football player or two in the draft. So, doesn't have to be in free agency. They already went out and got a free agent. Let's see. Rob U, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rob U writes, take a flyer on a guy like Devin Bush. He had too many issues for me in Pittsburgh, man. Maturity issues at that. Like I don't do the maturity thing. He's got to grow up. He was very immature. Didn't take well to the coaching staff in Pittsburgh at times. Very disappointed with how he performed. And I think I'm good on Devin Bush, man. For somebody that was as highly touted coming out of college, he was a top 10 pick. For him to be where he is now, Steelers not picking up his fifth-year option, and the dude's still a free agent. No one's even sniffing around him right now. Tells you all you need to know about how he's viewed around the league. I'm good on Devin Bush. I'd rather go get Deion Jones, and I don't even know what he's up to because he got traded to the Browns last year during the season, so I'm not even sure how well he's playing or not playing at this point. Let's see. 1-6 Devil Doc. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, 1-6 Devil Doc writes, Lou, hope all is well with you and the fam. Likewise. Maybe they think Jamin made enough progress to play middle linebacker and Barton would play outside linebacker. Keep up the great work. I don't think that's the case. They saw enough from Jamin in his rookie season to, I think, feel confident that he's better suited for the outside, which I always thought from the jump that he was an outside backer. But, you know, he absolutely had his head spinning as a rookie. So could they go back to that? Sure. That's a possibility. I don't think that's what they're doing. Cody Barton is a middle linebacker. He is an off-the-ball linebacker. And because of that, if they were going to do anything, they would leave Jamin where he is, and they would insert Cody Barton into the lineup and go about it that way. But again, we'll see what they decide to do. You know, we'll see what they decide to do. The likelihood is, I'm just going to tell you this right now, as we sit here on March 15th, the likelihood is that Cody Barton is your week 1 starter. That's where we're trending right now, which doesn't make me happy, warm and fuzzy inside. That's where we're trending right now. Even if you draft a guy in the 4th round, the likelihood that a rookie comes in and beats out Cody Barton to start, slim and none. That's the possibility. Slim and none. So at this point, Cody Barton's probably going to start. I don't love it. I don't hate it. Okay? I don't love it, though. I don't love it. Zoe Life, No Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Zoe Life, No Life writes, in my opinion, that smirk by Ron when Mayhew was praising TH was not genuine. I went to the same high school as TH, so best of luck to him. Jamin at middle linebacker, Kalik at will. They're definitely not doing that. Definitely not doing that. I would like that a lot, actually. But that's assuming Jamin can handle the responsibility of being a middle linebacker, get everybody lined up, and his head not be spinning. We came to the conclusion last year that Jamin is at his best when he doesn't have to think. Just let him go out and play. He's too damn fast and athletic to be bogged down by thinking about shit. Where does this guy got to line up? Where do I got to line up? What's the call? Nah, to hell with that. Hey, you scoot over a gap. Nah, to hell with all that shit. Just let Jamin focus on his job and responsibility so he can play fast. Let somebody else do all of that thinking. But I'm all for getting Kalik on the field in some way, shape, or form, in some capacity. I'm not saying you got to start Kalik. I'm not even advocating for that right now. But there are packages that I feel like you can put together that gets a guy like Kalik Hudson on the field. That's all I'm saying. And I don't know about whether Ron was being genuine or not. I can't say. I don't like to make those kinds of assumptions. I can just tell you this. You have to appreciate what Heineke did for this organization over the last 2 years. 3 if you want to count the playoff game in 2020, but more specifically 2021 and 2022. You got to appreciate what he's done. There are people who, want to give this man a tribute and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, what are we talking about? Remember, people were like, they should let Heineke run out of the tunnel last. And for what? Like, relax. Okay. He didn't take us to the playoffs in either of the last 2 years. He fought his balls off. He pulled us from the depths of despair 2 years in a row. And he gave us a fighting chance. And that's all you can ask for from a backup quarterback. But let's not make it more than what it is. So I appreciate Heineke, the hell out of Heineke, man. I wanted him here. You guys know that. I already said he's everything that I look for in a backup quarterback, because something's going to happen when he comes into the game. Whether good or bad, some shit's going to happen, and that's what I want out of my backup quarterback. Unless I'm winning the game, unless we're winning the game, 27-10, yeah, then I want Jacoby Brissett to come in and throw 16 passes, go 10 of 16 for 102 yards and, or 86 yards and, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and just manage the shit out of the game. But if it's 0-0, if we're down 14-7, Jacoby Brissett is not the guy I want coming into the game. If I need a guy to start for 3-4 weeks, I mean, he can get you by. That's the definition of a backup quarterback. He can get you by, but the likelihood is he's probably not going to be any better than 2-2, depending on the opponents that you're playing. But that's the kind of guy we're going to bring in here. Tino TV. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Tino TV writes, if Sam proves itself, we make a splash next year. I don't know. I truly don't know what will become of the roster, what direction they'll take. I'll say this. It's much more conceivable to imagine them making a big splash if they think they're 1 or 2 pieces away because they now have their quarterback. That changes everything. When you're not sure about quarterback, it's hard for you to go all in, push the chips to the center of the table, and start making moves like the Eagles did last year, right? They couldn't have done that if they didn't believe in Jalen Hurts, right? They only went out and got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and went out and got James Bradbury and Kaiser White and brought all of these guys in because they said, we believe in Jalen Hurts' ability to take us where we ultimately want to go. And he proved them right. But that was because the year prior, he started and he led them to the playoffs. So if Sam shows them enough this upcoming season, then they'll be a little bit more likely to say, you know what? All right, let's start going for it now. We got a guy. Now, the thing that I worry about, and I've already stressed this, but I don't want to keep harping on it, is Sam could have a hell of a season and then Eric Bieniemy gets a head coaching job. Then what? We'll cross that bridge when we get there. That's how I feel about that. See. Kevin the PRF, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Kevin the PRF writes, maybe they budget back to 7 to sign all 4 D linemen. They look, that's part of the reason they're not interested in going after a guy like Lamar Jackson, is because they're still holding out hope that, much like Daron Payne did this past season, Montez Sweat is going to prove that he should be signed. And honestly, they may like Montez enough already to give him a deal next year. They just want to make sure that he stays healthy and that he continues to perform at the level that he's been giving them. 7 to 9 sacks, dominant run defender, consistent play out on the edge. They may give him a deal just based off of that, what he's been doing. I contend that because with defensive ends, there's no such thing. It's similar to like quarterback contracts. There's really no such thing as an in-between deal. Either you're getting broke off or you're making modest money. But there's like defensive ends, like a basic solid defensive end is still making quality NFL money, more than a linebacker, right? Like that position just gets paid way more money. So you've got to be sure on a defensive end. You don't have to be sure on a linebacker. You have to be sure on a defensive end, which is why I would prefer Montez to leave no doubt. But are they budgeting for that into the future? For me, personally, I'm not going to not spend money this year worried about guys that I may sign down the road if it's not a quarterback. Like, if I really want Montez Sweat, and it's not like you got to pay him in the same year. If I want Montez Sweat next year and I want to sign him, then there's ways. The cap will probably go up again. And then there's ways to finagle the cap. People do it. Teams do it all the time. Now, there's some pain that comes with that sometimes, but we're not in the position. A lot of these, I told you, our books are relatively clean. We don't have any nasty contracts on the books. We're not still paying somebody an exorbitant amount of money that's no longer here. We don't have contracts where it's going to be painful to get out of. We got out of that business a while ago when we got out of the Landon Collins business. We got out of that business a long time ago where we had contracts with guys where we were like, oh my God, this is killing us. We don't do that anymore. So if you restructure a deal, it's not Deshaun Watson restructuring his deal this year to free up $24 million. And then the next 3 years, his cap hit is $64 million and you can't do a damn thing about it. We don't have any deals like that. If you restructure Terry's deal, yeah, his cap number will go up. It's not going to be astronomical. You restructure John Allen's deal, his number will go up next year, the year after. It's not going to be astronomical. So there's ways you can give a guy a bunch of guarantees and make his base salary next to nothing. If you really want to get a deal done, you can get a deal done. There are no excuses in this league. When you're not paying a quarterback, keep that in mind, okay? Once you're paying a quarterback, all bets are off. We're not paying a quarterback. So we theoretically can do whatever we want to do because we're not paying a left tackle big money. We're not paying a cornerback massive money. We're not paying any defensive ends massive money. Our biggest contracts are defensive tackles. None of our deals surpass $100 million in excess. AVV-wise, Daron Payne's deal, which is what? 4 times 24 is 96, I believe. So 23 would be 92. So you're talking about $22.5 million is our highest AAV on the roster. What's Terry's AVV? I don't know. They're somewhere close. I think Terry's may be slightly higher than his at maybe 24, something like that. But again, I said all of that to say this. Our books are relatively clean, and you don't have to penny pinch here. Like a guy like Cole Holcomb isn't going to prevent you from signing Montez Sweat next year. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing if you went out and you signed Tremaine Edmonds, that could prevent you from signing Chase Young or Montez Sweat. We're talking about a 3-year, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, $21 million deal. That's not going to stop you from signing Montez Sweat next year. That's not going to stop you from signing Cam Curl this year. Okay? So, like, I don't subscribe to that. We're not paying a quarterback. That's what costs you in this league. When you got blue chippers, when you got to pay Chris Jones $130 million, on average, he's making $29 million a year. That's what gets you. When you got to pay a left tackle $20, $22, $24, $25, $27 million, that's what gets you. When you got to pay a cornerback $28, $29 million a year, that's what gets you. When you got to pay a quarterback 44, 47, 50 million, that's what gets you. We're not doing any of that. We just signed Andrew Wiley to a 3-year, $24 million deal. That's our starting right tackle. We're not spending any real bread out here. So we've got plenty of it to go around. So I don't subscribe to that. Let's see. Take command for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, yo, been a minute, Lou. It has been. Good to hear from you. I've liked Ron's moves, to be honest. Me too. The only one that I didn't love to this point is Cody Barton. I don't hate it. I just don't love it, and I don't love the fact that it felt like Cody Barton was plan B, but Cody Barton should have been plan C or D. Plan A should have been, hey, let's go out here and get one of these boys at the linebacker position early in this thing. All right. Their focus was more of the offensive line. I get it. Okay. I get it. You wanted to fortify that first. I got no problems with that. And by the time you might have circled around to the linebacker position, David Long, Tremaine Edmonds, Aziz Al-Shire, and Bobby Okereke, and all these guys were already gone and locked up already. I get that too. Then plan B should have been, all right, let's get Cole Holcomb back. Plan B should not have been, all right, let's turn hard pivot and go get Cody Barton like somebody else was racing you to him. That was my problem. But again, there's plenty of time for them to rectify what I view as a problem. It may not be a problem, and Cody Barton may be everything that we are looking for at the linebacker and then some. I could be flat out wrong about this. I've been wrong before. I'm going to be wrong more. All right? So I really, truly don't know. I just know what I know, and what I know is I don't want a lateral move at linebacker. We've had that too many times over the 3 years Ron and Jack have been here. I want something different, whether that's the draft or that's a high-level free agent, which that ship is already sailed. I don't care what it is. Just make it happen. I've liked the moves too, to be honest with you. Wilfredo Elias, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Wilfredo writes, gonna miss Holcomb. Hope they extend Curl because I really don't want to have to worry about losing him next year. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think they understand his value to the football team. A lot of times you find out truly what someone's value is in their absence. I think nothing he could have done on the field measured up to what we look like without him on the field. I think his value spoke loud and clear in the first 2 weeks of the season when he wasn't on the field, and the final 3 out of 4 games when he wasn't on the field. Because we played really well in week 18 with a bunch of young boys out there that didn't know any better. But that was the only game we played well in this season without Cam Curl on the field defensively. We didn't play well against San Francisco, which I think was the first game that he missed. We didn't play well against Cleveland. We didn't play well against Detroit, and we didn't play well against Jacksonville. So he missed 5 games this year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if he played in the second Giants game. I think he did. I think that's the game he got hurt in. But I think the first game without him was San Francisco, and we saw that train wreck. And then the following week, Cleveland, they had guys running all over the field wide ass open. You would have thought Cleveland was a juggernaut of an offense. And then they cleaned it up in week 18 against Dallas. But again, young boys were out there showing up and showing out. So 4 out of the 5 games he didn't play, we were an absolute abject disaster on defense. I think it speaks volumes. Don't think it's a coincidence that 4 of our worst performances of the season defensively came with Cam Curl on the sideline with an ailment. So I think they understand his value, and I think they're going to get something done. Bloodshot Sports, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Bloodshot Sports writes, "What's up, Lou? I hope Khaleke Hudson gets more playtime because he looked like a beast in the Cowboys game." I feel the same way you do. I've long said this about Khaleke Hudson. He's got a specific and particular skill set. All right. He's like Nielsen in Taken. All right. He's got a specific set of skills that he's developed over time that allows him to be an asset to your defense. And if you're smart enough, you will utilize him in these ways. Okay. All you got to do is go back to what he did at Michigan. All right. And use that. They called it the Viper position at Michigan. All right, a hybrid backer safety type. They blitzed him a ton. He was always up around the line of scrimmage. He could run with guys out of the backfield. He's a great athlete. Utilize him in that way, right? Use him around the line of scrimmage. Use him as a blitzer, okay? Take advantage of the things that he's done in the past that he does well. I haven't seen enough of that. I'd like to see more of that. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Thank you guys for joining me on this live stream. We will be live tomorrow night where we will cover any and everything. I expect us to have a quarterback signed by tomorrow night stream, personally. I wouldn't be shocked if it got done today at some point because you're starting to run out of time. You can't just sit around and think that these other teams aren't going to keep grabbing these quarterbacks. You saw Baker Mayfield come off the board today, and the pool is dwindling, right? Mariota's still available. Gardner Minshew's still available. Teddy Bridgewater's still available. Jacoby Brissett's still available. I think they're picking from that pool of 4 right there. Right there. So if you want one, you're going to have to go get them, and teams are going to settle in after this first wave of free agency. You know, all these deals that they've already agreed to get signed, they're going to continue to work, and you're going to see some more of these names come off. So I think we're going to be among them. We're going to go ahead and grab the one that we want and take care of that backup quarterback situation. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the command post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. We will be back tomorrow night, 9:30 p. And we'll talk about everything under the sun, including what the divisional foes are doing. Ezekiel Elliott just released by the Dallas Cowboys. That was something that was brewing in the works earlier today. It finally happened. We knew that was coming. When they franchise tagged Tony Pollard, you saw the writing on the wall. I wouldn't be shocked if Dallas didn't draft Bijan Robinson. Honestly, for where they sit in the draft, that's right around the Bijan Robinson wheelhouse. I wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys selected Bijan Robinson and kept Tony Pollard in that hybrid role where he's, the second back, and moved on from Zeke and transitioned right into Bijan Robinson. Makes a ton of sense. Bijan already said, I would love to stay in the state of Texas. I'd love to play for the Cowboys. I think that was his favorite team growing up. So makes a ton of sense to me. We'll talk about all of that. The division has gotten interesting. The Giants have gotten exponentially better this offseason. You knew they would because They've got guys that came from Buffalo, and Buffalo does it the right way. So you knew it was only a matter of time before they started to put their fingerprints all over that roster. And they're doing a hell of a job in New York with the Giants. Okay. Dallas made a splashy move, which for me doesn't move the needle at all. But for some, they love it. You know, my guy JP gets excited about those splashy type moves. Not me. I'm fine with what we've done to this point. You know what this reminds me of? Reminds me of 2020, when we had a lot of little moves that I remember we had this same exact conversation in 2020. You all were pissed. JP was fuming. All these guys available, and this is what we do. JD McKissick and Cornelius Lucas and, you know, this guy, Logan Thomas, and that guy. And what did it turn out to be? It turned out to be our best free agency class to date. I like what they've done. We'll see if it bears any fruit, but they're not done. So we'll talk about everything under the sun on Thursday night. Again, ears to the street, eyes wide open and peeled, because this is far from over. But until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care. And as always, God bless and good afternoon. Hold on. Got a super chat here from Starface. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Starface writes, don't need splash signings. We need to make trades. You don't need splash signings. You need to make trades. You must have some players in mind. Trades necessarily don't move the needle either. Austin Eckler is out there. We've been rumored to be interested. I know a lot of you would love that. I wouldn't have any problems with it. None whatsoever. I think it's unnecessary, however. You're going to have to give the Chargers probably a third-round pick. That's my guess. And you're going to have to pay him. I'm not really interested in doing that. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. You guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Anything happens of note, Aaron Rodgers has pretty much said he's going to the Jets. We'll talk. Trust me, we'll talk. Have a good one.